Hello. My name is Frank Morrison. I'm 35 years old, and I'm writing this from a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. I live alone. I have no friends, no family, no one who remembers my name anymore. The people who once knew me are gone, some moved away, some disappeared, and some, well, some died because of what I did. This is my confession. This is the story of how I destroyed everything I ever loved, and how the darkness I summoned consumed not just my enemies, but everyone I cared about. I'm telling you this story not for sympathy or forgiveness. I'm beyond that now. I'm telling you this as a warning. Because if you're reading this, if you're in pain, if someone has wronged you and you're thinking about revenge, about using forces you don't understand to settle your scores, I'm begging you, don't. The price is always higher than you imagine. And by the time you realize what you've done, it's already too late. I need you to understand something. I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always the hollow, broken man typing these words in the middle of the night while shadows crawl across my walls. There was a time when I was happy. When I believed in goodness, in justice, in the idea that if you treated people with kindness, life would reward you. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where you go to church on Sundays and wave to your neighbors. My parents were good people. My father worked at the steel mill for 30 years. My mother was a teacher. They raised me to believe in honesty, hard work, and doing the right thing. I graduated high school, went to community college, got a degree in business administration. Nothing fancy, but it was honest work. When I was 23, I moved to Portland for a job opportunity. It was exciting, my first time living in a big city, my first real taste of independence. I got a job at a marketing firm. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. I made friends. I joined a gym. I started building a life. And then, 2 years later, I met Emily. I was 25 when we first crossed paths. It was at a coffee shop downtown, one of those trendy places with exposed brick walls and baristas with sleeve tattoos. I was working on my laptop when she sat down at the table next to mine. She had blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, bright green eyes, and this infectious laugh that made everyone in the room turn and smile. Our eyes met. She smiled. I smiled back. And just like that, my world changed. We started talking. Turned out she worked in graphic design at a company just a few blocks away. We exchanged numbers. Had our first date that weekend. Within a month, we were inseparable. Within 6 months, I knew I wanted to marry her. Emily was everything I'd ever wanted. She was kind, funny, creative, passionate about her work. She had this way of making even the most mundane moments feel special. We'd spend Sunday mornings making pancakes and reading the paper. We'd take long drives up the coast, windows down, music blasting. We'd stay up late watching bad movies and laughing until our sides hurt. For 3 years, we built a life together. We talked about marriage constantly. We'd look at rings online, discuss where we'd want to have the ceremony, argue playfully about whether we wanted kids. She wanted 3, I wanted 2, we'd settled on 2.5 as a compromise. We even looked at houses, nothing we could afford yet, but we'd drive through nice neighborhoods on weekends and point out which ones we liked, planning our future. I thought we had forever. But Emily had 2 best friends, Rachel and Jennifer. Rachel Chen and Jennifer Davis had been Emily's friends since college. They'd all gone to Portland State together, been roommates for 2 years, gone through breakups and new jobs and all the chaos of your early 20s together. By the time I met Emily, Rachel and Jennifer were fixtures in her life, and therefore, fixtures in mine. At first, I liked them. Rachel was sharp, witty, worked in tech at one of the big companies downtown. She was confident, always impeccably dressed, the kind of person who commanded attention when she walked into a room. Jennifer was quieter, more artistic. She did freelance photography and lived in a beautiful loft her parents had bought her. She had this dreamy, bohemian vibe, always talking about traveling the world, having adventures, living authentically. We'd all hang out together. Double dates at trendy restaurants. Weekend trips to the coast or to Bend for skiing. Game nights at Emily's apartment. On the surface, everything seemed fine. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice at first, I started picking up on things. The way Rachel and Jennifer would exchange glances when I talked about my job. The way they'd steer conversations toward Emily's old boyfriends, reminiscing about the fun times she'd had before she met me. The way they'd invite Emily to things and make it clear I wasn't invited, girls' nights that seemed to happen more and more frequently. And the comments. Always disguised as jokes, always delivered with a smile, but sharp nonetheless. "Frank's so stable," Rachel would say, the word dripping with condescension. "That must be nice after all those exciting guys you used to date, Em. Do you ever miss being spontaneous?" Jennifer would ask Emily. "You used to be so adventurous. Now you're always worried about making sure Frank's comfortable. Are you sure you want to settle down so young?" Rachel would say, nursing her wine. "You're only 28. There's so much life to live. So many experiences to have." I tried talking to Emily about it. Gently at first, then more directly as the comments continued. "I think Rachel and Jen might be. I don't know, trying to undermine us," I said one night after a particularly awkward dinner where they'd spent the entire evening talking about Emily's ex-boyfriend Derek, who apparently was now traveling through Europe being so brave and living his truth. Emily laughed it off. "They're my best friends, Frank. They just want what's best for me. They're protective, that's all. But they're Frank." She took my hand. "I love you. Nothing they say is going to change that. Okay?" I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But the seed had been planted. And Rachel and Jennifer watered it every chance they got. It started small. Emily would come home from lunch with Rachel and be distant, distracted. She'd check her phone more often, always angling the screen away from me. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing," in that tone that meant definitely something. Then came the fights. Little things at first. I'd forget to pick up milk on my way home, and instead of laughing it off like she used to, Emily would snap at me. I'd suggest we spend a quiet night in, and she'd accuse me of being boring. I'd try to plan a romantic weekend getaway, and she'd say she'd already made plans with Rachel and Jennifer. "You're being clingy," she said one night after I asked if we could spend more time together. "I need space, Frank. I need to breathe." I gave her space. But the more space I gave her, the more she pulled away. I started noticing her Instagram stories. She was going out more, bars, clubs, parties I'd never heard about. Always with Rachel and Jennifer. Always with people I didn't know. And always, conspicuously, without me. Then I saw the photos. Emily at some guy's apartment. Her head on his shoulder. That smile, the smile that used to be mine, directed at someone else. I called her. She didn't answer. I texted her. She replied hours later, with the girls. "Talk tomorrow." When she finally came over the next day, I knew. I could see it in her eyes before she even spoke. "Frank, I think we need to talk." Those 6 words. The death knell of every relationship. She sat down on my couch, the couch we'd picked out together at IKEA, laughing as we tried to pronounce the Swedish names. She wouldn't look at me. "I need space," she said. "I need to figure out who I am. What I want. I feel like I lost myself in this relationship. I don't know who I am without you anymore, and that scares me." "We can work through this," I said, my voice breaking. "We can go to counseling." "We can." "No." She finally looked at me, and her eyes were cold. "I've made up my mind, Frank. It's over." "Is there someone else?" That's not what this is about." "Is there someone else?" I repeated. She stood up. "I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't do this anymore." And just like that, 3 years ended. She walked out of my apartment, out of my life, and I stood there in my living room, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and torn out my heart. The next few weeks were the worst of my life. I couldn't eat. Food tasted like cardboard. I'd force myself to swallow a few bites of toast in the morning, and by evening I'd be nauseous. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship. What had I done wrong? Where had I failed? Why wasn't I enough? I'd pull up old photos on my phone and just look at them. Emily laughing at something I'd said. Emily in that yellow sundress I loved. Emily asleep on my chest, peaceful and perfect. I couldn't concentrate at work. I'd sit at my desk, staring at my computer screen, not seeing anything. My boss pulled me aside after I missed my 3rd deadline in 2 weeks. "Frank, what's going on with you? This isn't like you." "Personal stuff," I mumbled. "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." But it did happen again. And again. 2 weeks later, I was called into HR. "We're going to have to let you go," my manager said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry, Frank. We've been more than patient, but you're just not performing at the level we need." I walked out of that building with a cardboard box of my belongings and no idea what to do next. My apartment became my prison. I'd sit on the couch in the same sweatpants for days at a time. The dishes piled up in the sink. The laundry overflowed from the hamper. I stopped answering calls from my parents, my friends. What was there to say? That I'd lost everything. That I was a failure. I stalked Emily's social media obsessively. Every post, every story, every comment. Looking for clues. Looking for answers. Looking for any sign that she missed me, that she regretted her decision, that she still loved me. And then I saw it. Emily, at a rooftop bar. Sunset in the background. Her arms around some guy, tall, fit, perfect smile. The caption, "New adventures with this one red heart." In the background of the photo, Rachel and Jennifer, raising their glasses, grinning like they'd won some kind of victory. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was rage. Pure, white-hot rage. They'd done this. Rachel and Jennifer. They'd poisoned Emily against me. They'd whispered in her ear, planted doubts, convinced her she deserved better. They'd destroyed my life, destroyed my future, destroyed everything I'd worked for. And now they were celebrating. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to feel the pain I was feeling. I wanted them to know what it was like to have everything ripped away from them. I wanted revenge. I spent days researching. Late nights hunched over my laptop, diving down internet rabbit holes. Forums about the occult. Subreddits about curses and hexes. YouTube videos with ominous music and grainy footage of supposed witches and warlocks. Most of it was obviously fake. Scammers trying to sell authentic spells for $19.99. Teenage Wiccans talking about manifesting and energy work. New Age nonsense about crystals and karma. But some of it felt different. Older. Darker. There were threads discussing real practitioners, people who claimed to work with forces that predated Christianity, forces that didn't care about morality or consequences. Forces that simply did what they were paid to do. One name kept coming up, Ravens Hollow. It was a tiny town in rural Washington, about 2 hours from Seattle. Population, 437. One of those dying logging towns where most of the buildings were abandoned and the few people who remained were either too poor to leave or had reasons to stay hidden. According to the forums, there was a woman there. No one knew her real name. Some called her the Witch of Ravens Hollow. Others called her the Bone Woman. She was old, no one knew how old. Some claimed she'd been there since before the town existed. She lived in a house at the edge of the woods, and people went to her when they had problems modern medicine and modern law couldn't solve. Most importantly, she was real. Person after person vouched for her. Swore they'd seen her work miracles, and nightmares. I found myself staring at my screen, my heart pounding. This was insane. This was the kind of thing desperate, crazy people did. This was exactly what I needed. I had a friend, Marcus Williams, who lived outside Seattle. We'd gone to college together, stayed in touch over the years. He was one of the few people still answering my calls. I called him at midnight. Frank. Jesus, man, do you know what time it is? Marcus. That town you told me about once. Ravens Hollow. The woman who lives there. Silence. Then, why are you asking about that? I need to see her. Frank, you don't want to mess with. I need to see her, Marcus. Can you take me there or not? Another long pause. You're serious. Dead serious. I heard him sigh. Yeah, okay. I can take you. But Frank, you need to understand something. If you go down this road, there's no coming back. Whatever you think you want. I know what I want. All right. Meet me at my place tomorrow at noon. And Frank? Bring cash. She doesn't take credit cards. The next day, I withdrew $2,000 from my bank account, most of what I had left after 2 months of unemployment. I threw a duffel bag in my car and drove 3 hours to Marcus's place outside Seattle. He was waiting on his porch, looking uneasy. Marcus was a big guy, ex-football player, built like a refrigerator, but right now he looked nervous. Last chance to back out, he said as I pulled up. I'm not backing out. He nodded slowly, got into the passenger seat, and directed me north. We drove for almost 2 hours, leaving the suburbs behind, winding through dense forests on increasingly narrow roads. The GPS lost signal about 40 minutes in. Marcus navigated from memory. I came out here a few years ago, he said quietly. I was having problems. Things I couldn't explain. Things doctors couldn't help with. Someone told me about the woman in Ravens Hollow. I was desperate enough to try. Did it work? Yeah. Yeah, it worked. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. Finally, we reached a faded green sign, Ravens Hollow, population 437, founded 1889. The town was exactly as I'd imagined it, dying. Main Street was 2 blocks long, lined with boarded-up storefronts. A closed diner. A shuttered gas station. A few houses that looked occupied, but barely. The few people we saw watched us drive by with suspicious, unfriendly eyes. "Keep going," Marcus said. "She lives outside town. Another mile or so." We turned onto a dirt road that wound through thick forest. The trees pressed in close, blocking out most of the sunlight. After about 10 minutes, Marcus pointed to a mailbox, rusted, leaning at an angle. "There. Turn here." A gravel driveway led through the trees to a small clearing. And there, in the middle of the clearing, was the house. It looked like something out of a horror movie. Old, sagging, gray wood siding that hadn't been painted in decades. A porch that tilted alarmingly to one side. Windows covered with thick, dark curtains. A yard filled with strange objects, wind chimes made of bones, symbols painted on flat stones, iron poles driven into the ground at odd angles. And in the yard, chained to a post, was the biggest dog I'd ever seen. Solid black, easily 150 pounds, with yellow eyes that tracked us as we got out of the car. The dog growled, low, threatening. "Don't look at it directly," Marcus muttered. "And don't run." We walked slowly toward the porch. I could feel the dog's eyes on me, could hear the rattle of its chain as it shifted its weight. Before we reached the porch steps, the front door opened. She was old. That was my first thought. Impossibly old. She must have been in her 70s or 80s, but her eyes, sharp, bright, unnervingly intelligent, belonged to someone much younger. She wore a faded floral dress and had her white hair pulled back in a loose bun. Her skin was deeply lined, weathered like old leather. She looked at Marcus first. "You came back." "Yes, ma'am." Then those sharp eyes turned to me. She studied me for a long moment, and I had the uncomfortable feeling she was seeing right through me, seeing every thought, every secret, every sin. "You're here for revenge," she said. Not a question. A statement. I swallowed hard. "Yes." She nodded slowly, then stepped aside. "Come in." The inside of the house was worse than the outside. It smelled of sage and tobacco and something else, something organic and slightly rotten that made my stomach turn. The living room was dimly lit, curtains drawn against the daylight. Shelves lined every wall, filled with jars containing liquids of various colors, dried herbs, what looked like animal bones. Symbols were carved into the wooden beams of the ceiling, symbols I didn't recognize, but that made my skin crawl just looking at them. In the center of the room was a table covered with a stained cloth. She gestured for us to sit. I sat. Marcus stood by the door, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable. The old woman sat across from me and fixed me with that penetrating stare. "Tell me," she said. So I did. I told her everything. About Emily. About Rachel and Jennifer. About how they'd poisoned her against me, destroyed my relationship, ruined my life. About how they were celebrating now while I was dying inside. About how I wanted them to suffer the way I was suffering. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair, silent for a long moment. "You want them to feel pain," she said finally. "Yes. You want them to lose sleep. To lose their minds. To understand what they took from you. Yes. You want revenge. Yes." She studied me with those ancient eyes. "Revenge always has a price, boy. Always. You call on darkness to do your work, that darkness doesn't just touch your enemies. It spreads. It infects. It takes more than you bargained for. I don't care. You say that now. But you will care. When it's too late, when you see what you've unleashed, you'll care very much. Can you do it or not?" She smiled, not a pleasant smile, but the smile of someone who'd seen this story play out 1,000 times before. "Oh, I can do it. The question is, are you willing to pay the price?" "How much?" "500 now. 1,500 when the work is complete." I'd expected more. I pulled a stack of bills from my jacket pocket and set them on the table. She didn't count them. She just looked at me. "This isn't the price I meant," she said. "Money is nothing. The real price comes later. The price is paid in suffering. In loss. In regret. And once you start down this path, you can't turn back. The forces I'll call don't listen to second thoughts or apologies. They do their work, and they take their payment. Do you understand?" My throat was dry. "I understand." "No," she said quietly. "You don't. But you will." She stood up and walked to one of the shelves, running her fingers along the jars until she found what she was looking for, a small clay pot sealed with wax. She brought it back to the table and set it between us. "I need something from you," she said. "A piece of yourself. Hair will do." She produced a pair of scissors from somewhere, old, iron, the handles worn smooth with age. She gestured for me to lean forward. I did. She grabbed a lock of my hair and cut it close to the scalp. She held the hair up to the dim light, examining it closely. Then she nodded and placed it carefully in the clay pot. "Your enemies' names," she said. "Rachel Chen. Jennifer Davis." She wrote the names on a piece of aged paper with ink that looked disturbingly red. Then she folded the paper and added it to the pot. "It's done," she said. "Go home. Within a week, they'll begin to suffer. Within 2 weeks, they'll understand what they did to you. And within a month." She smiled that terrible smile again. "Well. You'll see." "What about me?" I asked. Will anything happen to me?" "Oh yes," she said. "You'll be visited. The entities I'm calling, they'll want to make sure you're serious. They'll want to see your resolve. They may test you. But if you're strong, if you truly want this, they'll leave you be. Eventually." I stood up, my legs shaking. "Thank you." "Don't thank me, boy. Not yet. Not until you see what you've bought." Marcus and I left quickly. As we walked back to the car, I glanced back at the house. The old woman was standing in the doorway, watching us. And in the window beside her, just for a moment, I thought I saw another figure. Tall, thin, completely black, like a shadow given form. I blinked, and it was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What had I done? What had I actually done? This was insane. This was. My phone rang. 2:47 a.m. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello." Static. Loud, crackling static that made me pull the phone away from my ear. Then, underneath the static, whispers. Multiple voices, layered over each other, saying things I couldn't quite make out. Words and languages I didn't recognize. And underneath it all, a sound like breathing, slow, deliberate, like something was listening. I hung up. My hand was shaking. The phone rang again immediately. Same number. Same static. Same whispers. I turned off the phone. That's when I heard them in my apartment. Footsteps. Soft but distinct, moving through my living room. Heading toward my bedroom. I sat up, my heart pounding. "Hello." The footsteps stopped. Then, scratching. Long, slow scratches against my bedroom wall. Like fingernails, or claws, dragging across the plaster. I jumped out of bed and hit the light switch. Nothing. The room was empty. The scratching stopped. I stood there, breathing hard, my mind trying to rationalize what I'd just heard. Old building. Pipes. Mice. Something. Anything. Then I heard my TV turn on in the living room. I walked out slowly, my whole body tense. The TV was on, showing static, just like my phone. But as I watched, images started to form in the static. Shapes. Faces. Twisted, wrong faces that appeared for just a moment before dissolving back into noise. And then, clear as day, my living room. On my TV screen, I could see my living room from an angle near the ceiling. I could see myself standing there, staring at the screen. I was watching myself watch myself. I grabbed the remote and tried to turn it off. Nothing. I unplugged the TV. The screen stayed on. On the screen, I watched myself unplug the TV. I watched the confusion on my face. And then, in the corner of the screen, I saw it. A shadow. Tall, impossibly thin, standing in the corner of my living room behind me. I spun around. Nothing was there. When I looked back at the TV, the shadow had moved. It was closer to me on the screen. Right behind me. I ran. I ran to the bathroom, locked the door, turned on all the lights. I sat on the closed toilet lid, my head in my hands, and prayed, actually prayed, for the first time since I was a kid. Please, I whispered. Please, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please make it stop. Silence. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, no turning back now. The voice came from right beside me. I looked up. In the mirror above the sink, I saw myself. But wrong. My reflection was smiling, a wide, terrible smile I wasn't making. And its eyes were completely black. You called us, the reflection said in my voice. We answered. Now we work. I screamed. I closed my eyes and screamed until my throat was raw. When I opened them again, the bathroom was normal. My reflection was normal. Everything was quiet. But I knew, they were still here. Watching. Waiting. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my bathtub, every light in the apartment on, crying and praying and wishing I could take it all back. But it was too late for that. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those shadows. Heard those whispers. I drank coffee until my hands shook, took cold showers to stay awake, blasted music to drown out the sounds that came in the quiet moments. By the 4th day, I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Seeing things move in my peripheral vision. Hearing my name called from empty rooms. I finally collapsed on my couch and slept for 16 hours straight. When I woke up, my phone had 7 missed calls from Marcus. I called him back. What's wrong? Have you talked to anyone? He asked. He sounded scared. Have you heard anything? Heard what? Rachel. Rachel Chen. She's in the hospital. My stomach dropped. What happened? I don't know the details. A friend of a friend mentioned it. Some kind of breakdown. She was found in her apartment, screaming about things crawling on her. They had to sedate her. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt horrified. But all I felt was satisfaction. It's working, I said quietly. Frank. I have to go. I hung up and sat there on my couch, a smile slowly spreading across my face. It was working. I had to see for myself. I waited another week, a week of whispers in the night, of shadows that moved when I wasn't looking, of my reflection sometimes not quite matching my movements. I was getting used to it. Or maybe I was just going numb. Then I drove to Seattle, to Rachel's apartment building. I knew where she lived. I'd been there before, back when we all used to hang out together. Back when I'd thought they were my friends. The building was nice. Expensive. One of those modern high-rises downtown with a doorman and a gym and a rooftop terrace. Rachel had done well for herself. I talked my way past the doorman, told him I was a friend, that I'd heard she was sick, that I wanted to check on her. He looked skeptical but let me up. I knocked on her door. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Rachel? It's Frank. Can we talk? I heard movement inside. Slow, shuffling steps. The door opened a crack, the chain still on. Rachel looked terrible. She'd always been so put together, designer clothes, perfect makeup, expensive haircuts. Now she looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her hair was greasy and unbrushed. Dark circles under her eyes. Her skin was pale, almost gray. She'd lost weight, a lot of weight. Her cheekbones jutted out sharply. But it was her eyes that got me. They were wide, darting, full of terror. Frank? She stared at me like I was a ghost. What are you doing here? I heard you weren't feeling well. Wanted to check on you. She laughed, a horrible, broken sound. Not feeling well. That's one way to put it. She looked over her shoulder, into her apartment. Do you see them? See who? Them. The ones in the corner. They're always in the corners, watching me. Whispering. They say such terrible things, Frank. They tell me what I've done. Who I've hurt. They show me things. Horrible things. She was trembling. Her hands gripped the edge of the door so hard her knuckles were white. Can I come in? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded and unchained the door. Her apartment was a mess. Curtains drawn. Lights off. Dirty dishes everywhere. The air smelled stale, like she hadn't opened a window in weeks. In one corner, I saw scratch marks on the wall, deep gouges in the plaster, like someone had clawed at it with their fingernails. Rachel saw me looking. I didn't do that, she said quickly. It was them. They did it. They scratch at the walls at night. They want me to know they're here. That they're real. She sat on her couch, or collapsed onto it, really. She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapped her arms around them. She looked like a child. I can't sleep anymore, she whispered. Every time I close my eyes, they're there. Standing over me. Breathing on me. Touching me with their cold hands. They tell me this is punishment. For what I did to you and Emily. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Frank. God, I'm so sorry. We shouldn't have interfered. It was wrong. So wrong. But please, her voice broke. Please, if you know how to make this stop, please tell me. I can't take it anymore. I can't. I just wanted to stop. I stood there, looking down at her. This woman who had ruined my life. This woman who had taken everything from me. And I felt nothing. No sympathy. No guilt. Just cold satisfaction. I don't know what you're talking about, I said. Maybe you should see a doctor. I turned and walked to the door. Behind me, Rachel started sobbing, great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. "Please," she begged. "Please, Frank. Please." I closed the door behind me and walked away. 2 weeks later, I drove to Jennifer's place. She didn't live in Seattle anymore. According to her Instagram, which she'd stopped updating a month ago, she'd moved back in with her mother in Tacoma. The house was nice. A 2-story colonial in a quiet suburb. Well-maintained lawn. Flowers in the garden. The kind of place that screamed, normal, happy family. I rang the doorbell. A woman in her 50s answered, Jennifer's mother, I assumed. She looked exhausted. Worried. Like she hadn't slept properly in weeks. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Hi. I'm Frank. I'm a friend of Jennifer's. I heard she moved back home and wanted to check on her." The woman's face softened slightly. "Oh. That's very kind of you. Jennifer, she's not doing well. The doctors don't know what's wrong with her. They've run every test imaginable, but..." She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. "Would you like to see her? Maybe seeing a friendly face would help. If that's okay." She led me inside and up the stairs. She's in her old bedroom. She barely comes out anymore. Barely eats. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help her. She knocked on a door at the end of the hall. "Jenny. Honey. You have a visitor." No response. She opened the door. The room was dark. Curtains drawn, lights off. It smelled of sweat and something else, something sour and sickly. Jennifer was sitting on the floor in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest. She'd always been so vibrant, so full of life. Now she looked like a corpse. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Her hair had fallen out in patches. Her arms were covered in scratches, some fresh, some scabbed over. But worst of all were her eyes. Sunken. Hollow. Completely devoid of hope. She didn't look up when I entered. "Jenny, honey, your friend Frank is here," her mother said gently. At my name, Jennifer's head snapped up. Her eyes.